Assalamu alaikum, my brothers. If you can come closer, it will help, inshallah. I want this to be an interactive session. So I'd really like if there are questions at the end. So the closer you are, the more involved you might be. Wallahu alam. But oh, you want it? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Zahir Adil, and I represent an organization which is the only one single human rights group in the country and Canada that is led by Muslim Americans. There is no other. The name of the organization is Justice for All. I lead the Save India from Fascism campaign at Justice for All. Now, you might be thinking, the topic for this is starvation. What can we do and how can we be effective? And what does a person who leads the Save India from Fascism campaign at an organization have to do with it? A lot. So just to give you an introduction, we started about 30 years ago, the first campaign. Oh, because of the speaker. The first campaign that Justice for All did was for the Bosnian Muslims. Some of you are very young to remember that the Bosnians had suffered a genocide, but I'm sure some of you do remember. So we started with Bosnia Task Force, and that grew into what Justice for All is today. And today we have campaigns for the Rohingya, for the Uyghur, for Indian Muslims, for Kashmiris, and for Palestine. And we do certain very unique things that I will touch upon very briefly because this presentation is not about that. Starvation has been used in many, many different cases where Muslims have faced genocide, where Muslims have faced pogroms. A pogrom is something that targets a group of people as a whole with a view to a certain end. It could be to move those people out of there, to reduce their population. There could be several targets that the perpetrators would have, but very often they will use starvation as a tool. In the case of the Rohingya, they were locked up into their little villages, and there was only one single organization, Medicine Sans Frontier, which was allowed to get into those villages at a certain time, 3 times a week, and deliver only a certain amount of food. So they were monitoring, the Myanmar military was monitoring how much food gets to the Rohingya villages at the time. Come 2017, we all know what happened with the Rohingya. They were pushed out en masse. And today, we have the largest refugee camps of the Rohingyas in Bangladesh, in an area called Cox's Bazar. I was at those camps last year. And mashallah, one thing that we can say is in all of the suffering that they have faced, their faith in God has not changed. And this is something very unique. And it is something very, very dangerous for the other side, which is why they target us. In the case of the Uyghur, they were not starved per se. They were given pork. They were given alcohol. And they were said, eat as much pork as you want. Eat, drink as much alcohol as you want. We will supply it to you. But halal, no. If you are looking for halal, you'll go in jail. If you say salam, you go in jail. So China did something the opposite. They fed them things which were haram. Still starvation. But now I come to what I will focus on, and that's Gaza. All of you know that starvation is being done in Gaza, but it is being done to a level that we have never ever seen before. Starvation is being used as a weapon of war. This picture over here shows people in Gaza, and I'm going to say Palestinians in Gaza because it is very, very important about the terminology that we use. So if you hear me saying Gazans, stop me. These are Palestinians who live in Gaza, and they have to go only to certain areas where they may or may not get food. And they have to walk all the way from the north to the south to maybe get a little a few crumbs of bread that they might be able to get. Okay? And this picture shows a lot of people in Gaza trying to walk to one of these distribution centers. And what happened with the distribution centers that were run by the Israelis and the United States, when they got there, they were shot. So even if you go to get food, you were not safe. Today, there are no fixed distribution centers in Gaza. There is no way to get supplies in. And unfortunately, we have heard stories where one reporter was talking to us, and he said that, you know what, he was talking to one of our people in Turkey, and he said, you know what, I'm so hungry. Let me go grab something to eat, and I'll call you back. He never called back. We have no idea what happened to him. So the situation over there is dire, and it is different. If anybody is telling you that we are getting food into Gaza, look at them with a box full of salt. How are you going to get that food in? Some people say, oh no, we are buying it on the ground over there. What are you buying? There are no supplies going in. And so, what we have to do as Americans, what we have to do as Muslims is to make sure that the supplies get there. Only when the supplies get there will there be some reduction in that starvation that the people in Gaza are feeling. This is another picture. This is at one of the distribution areas where people are just so desperate. I mean, look at the desperation on that kid's face. Please remember this every time we have a lunch, a dinner. And I'm not saying to remember it from a bad point of view. Because I see us, me, you, we waste the benefits that we've been given by God. So remember this so that you will not waste that, inshallah. The effects of starvation, especially on the children, have been really very, very disturbing. These are children that are certainly not capable of surviving if it goes on like this. You do not know if they're going to last a day, 2 days. We have no idea. We speak with doctors who've been there, and they break down. And these are doctors. They are trained to face such situations, and they break down crying. So starvation in Gaza, although there is some silver lining, is that the mainstream press picked up on it. And this one particular story that CNN did is actually very, 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 very pointed to the issue. And if you scan that code, if you want, you can take a look at that story that CNN did. Okay? I'd suggest take a look at it. And there is a reason why. Other organizations, the Washington Post, the New York Times, they have also done stories on the starvation in Gaza. Keep that in mind. This is something that was not happening before. Everybody hates when you starve people. And that's the reason that people are turning against what Israel is doing as regards the starvation is concerned. Now, you and I, we always say that we are weak. And of course, we are weak in a way that we always need to seek help from God, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we have to take action. Okay? I would say something else, that we are strong but we have not realized our strength so far. So, how do you realize something that is beyond us? You connect with other people who think the same way that you do. Like I said before, starvation is something everybody agrees is a bad thing. And so, what did we do? We connected with about 1.5 million Christian evangelicals, telling them that, do you like that the children in Gaza are being starved? And obviously, the answer is going to be no, right? So now we have something common to connect with. And we are using their resources, we are using their strength added to our strength to make change. And the change, what are we asking for? Let the supplies in. That's the one ask. Let the food go in. Let the medicine go in. That's it. Now, don't get me wrong. I do not represent a relief agency. So I'm not going to say that give me the money and I'm going to take the supplies in. No. We are going as Justice for All, as a human rights group. We try to make it so that the supplies are allowed in, and then the other agencies can take over. There are about 5,000 to 6,000 trucks waiting ready to supply food into Gaza. And they are all of the UN food program, the United Nations food program. So it's not that the food is not there, it's just shut out. Now, a few things have happened. Why it makes it timely to work on this issue. So one thing that I said is that almost everyone will agree that starvation is a bad thing, right? The other thing, B'Tselem, which is a very prominent human rights group in Israel, finally called what's happening a genocide. Okay, and B'Tselem is something that is very, very well reputed even outside of Israel's borders. The other thing is that the largest Reform Jewish group in this country, in the United States, called upon Israel to stop what it's doing. They didn't call it a genocide, mind you, but they called upon Israel to stop the war on civilians. And that's the largest Jewish reform group. That's the second thing that happens. We've got people he's a Green Beret, by the way, Anthony Aguilar. He has come back with stories and how it has changed him. He went over there thinking that he's going to help the distribution of food, and he saw that these people were being shot at and being killed. We are hosting him in New Jersey at the end of October. Unfortunately, he's not coming here, but he's got an amazing story. So if you scan that QR code and you look at that interview, it has an amazing story behind it. Okay. The third thing that happens is that President Trump himself acknowledges that starvation is happening in Gaza. Not only that, but Melania Trump says that what is happening is she has a deep concern about the starvation of children. So now you have the President of the United States and the First Lady both saying that what is happening is a bad thing, or at least acknowledging that there is starvation happening in Gaza. Okay? So what did we do? We started a truck which had basically that same message, America can and must stop starvation in Palestine, with Trump's own video on it, and we started going around Washington, D.C. with that truck. Okay? They stopped the truck, they arrested the driver, they impounded the truck, and they were trying to shut us down. Alhamdulillah, that company that we hired that truck from, 2 days later, they said, you know what, I'm going to get on the truck again. A Christian minister called me. He said, get me a truck. I'll drive till they arrest me. And that's what gives us hope. Here's a Christian minister saying that, right? Here is a big poster that we did in Mar-a-Lago, just outside Trump's residences over there. America can and must stop starvation in Palestine. One singular message. America can and must stop starvation in Palestine. Americans must stop starvation in Palestine. About 2 of every 3 people in America hates what's going on. So we have a gap between public opinion and public policy. How do we fill that gap? At one time, public policy will catch up with public opinion. But right now, the powers that be are trying to push back as much as they can. What happens? You have Abu Taha running for office. You have his wife, Br, running for office. You have Nicole. Well, she's always been there. Nicole has always been there, but these are new, right? You have Mamdani that is trying to fill that gap. You have Karishma Manzoor, who's running for Senate in New Hampshire. So people are trying to fill that gap. And that becomes very dangerous for the both, for the Republicans primarily, but also for the Democrats. Not so much for the Democrats, but for the Republicans primarily. Why? Because these people who are trying to fill that gap are certainly not going to be on the side that they are trying to push. Right? Okay. So where does, all of these things are leading up to that first point of mine. What can we do? Okay. At this time, this is the time that you raise your own voice. Please, my brothers and sisters, this is not an option. I said that 1.5 million evangelical Christians are doing what we are telling them to do. But if I tell you the number of Muslims that are doing what we are telling them to do, that number is abysmal. It really is. I mean, we have difficulty getting 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people to at least use their voice. Doesn't matter. Call the White House. Will he listen? I have no idea. Leave it to Allah. You do your job and leave the results to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You do not know when he can change a person's mind, no matter whether it's Trump, who I have very, very little hope from, but you never know. Musa alayhi salam, even at the time when the Israelites were being persecuted so badly, he goes back to Pharaoh and tells him that come to the right path. Amr bil Maruf Nahi Anil Munkar is not a passive thing. Unfortunately, very often I see that we have lectures at our masajid. We'll have a sheikh come, he'll sit down here, he'll take the microphone in his hand and he'll give a lecture. We'll all say Subhanallah, we'll go home and we'll forget all about it. I'm not here for you to forget what I'm going to say. I'm going to ask for action. And the one thing that you can do, I mean, they say that there are different levels that you can do. The lowest level is when you have a feeling of sympathy against the victim. That's the lowest level. Let's rise a little bit above that. What can you rise to is up to you. But I'm going to tell you, please do not stay at that lowest level. You think that the reward for this person and this person is going to be the same? No. Wallahu alam, but I would think that it would not be the same, right? So the first thing that I'm going to do to ask is to ask you to call the president, the White House. If you do not want to use your own phone, use our tool. If you go to justiceforall.org, there's right at the top, there's a banner there, and you can use the tool. It'll hide your phone number from the president's, from the White House. But they don't check who's calling. They will not ask you your name. They will not ask you your location, nothing. All that you have to tell them is, I do not like what's happening in Gaza. I want the president to force the Israelis to open up the borders and let supplies in. That's all. Will it happen? Again, I have no idea. The second thing that I would say is spread the word. And that's when I come to the how can you be effective, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Second thing that you can do is spread this, what I'm telling you. You don't have to say it in my own words. This is not something, I don't have to have a PhD in anything to say, to understand that starvation is bad, right? The children over here can understand it. So spread this word, please. At your, try to find occasions where you can speak to people at your work, when you're with friends. Speak with them, right? And the third thing, like I said, that we are doing those billboarding and the LCD trucks. Our Feed Gaza coalition at this point has about 14 members and about 20 supporting organizations. How much money are any of these evangelical organizations or these supporting organizations giving us for this media campaign? Can somebody tell me? Zero. You know who has to foot the bill? We do. Because we are the ones who are the Muslim organization, and because we are the ones who are affected by it. If we are expecting the evangelicals to pay for it, that doesn't happen. They are helping us, but they're not paying for it. The same thing happened when they were ready to take billboards out about India in the southern Bible belt of the United States. They said, we will put the designs together, we will get the locations, we will do all, you pay for it. This is something we need to understand, my brothers and sisters. Other people are not going to pay for us. 30 years, well, in 1936, there was a ship, the SS St. Louis, which came to the US shores, and there were Jewish children on board, about 400, I think, if I remember. They asked for permission to offload these children on into the United States. They were denied. They went to Canada, asked Canada the same thing, and they were denied. Those children were sent back to Germany, and about half those children were put to death. Can any of you imagine if a ship carrying Jewish people today lands at the United States shores, will they ever send them back? No. Why? Because they put work behind where they are today. We haven't put the work in. Can we still do it? Yes, we can. We have the numbers. We are more than them. They have the money, that I agree. I don't know how they have the money, but they have the money, right? But we have the numbers. That's why I said, realize your strength. But know that you are weak until you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you take action. So first, make sure that you tell yourself, I can make a change. Second, make dua. Third, take action. Okay? One singular person can make a change. We had Dr. Naledi Pandor just about on July 19th in Boston. We hosted her in Boston. Anybody know who she is? She is the one who took Israel to the International Court of Justice. One single person who took action with what she was able to. Today, about 14 different countries have joined that. The power of one person saying that we need to do this. So please do not underestimate yourself. Do not underestimate the power of your phone call. Okay? It makes a difference. Every time you call your congressman, every time you call your senator, they actually note it down. So many people for, so many people against. Jim McGovern himself told me that if you come to me one time, they come to me 10 times. He was speaking about the Hindutwadis at that time, but I'm quite sure if the Hindutwadis go to him 10 times, the Zionists go to him 100 times. Okay? And Jim McGovern is a nice guy. He does not take money from AIPAC. Even then, he said that. Okay. Now, America can and must stop starvation in Palestine. This is the thing that I keep pushing. So like I said, we started a coalition and Charter for Compassion, joined us immediately. And now we've got ISNA, we've got some other organization, we've got Maruf Connecticut, we've got several evangelical groups, we've got, the Catholics haven't come on board, unfortunately, because they never say anything, they stay away. But Alhamdulillah, this is growing. And it is led by Muslims. It was started by us, it is led by us. Okay? Now I'll come to the second part. So this is the what can you do? How can you be effective? Now when I came here, I did not prepare myself for this lecture. I'm kind of speaking extempo, spontaneously, right? At that Naledi Pandor event, I wasn't supposed to speak at all, but the MC told me go up on stage and say something. And I said it. That is what I want all of you to learn. I want you to learn the art of speaking. How many times did, when I'm speaking here, how many times did you hear me say, so and so, blah, 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 blah. How many times I've said, or like? I don't think I said it even once. Because the more I would have said, so and so, the more you know that I have no idea what I'm talking about. Right? So very often, these are the things that hamper us when we speak to people. Try to find opportunities of speaking. I'll give you an example. So we were in Washington, D.C. last year. We had an advocacy tour called Kids Speaking for Kids, Kids Advocating for Kids. So it was kids from here advocating for the kids in Palestine. Anyway, that was one of the toughest advocacy trips I've done, by the way. Nobody wants to give us meetings. Nobody wants to meet with us. Nobody wants to take us into their offices because everybody's got a big Israeli flag outside their door and essentially trying to shut us out. So it was the toughest advocacy trip that I've been on. However, when all was done, all the offices are closed, we are outside the building. There's this girl, she is Miss America. Okay, she's got her, what would they call it, the banner right across her chest, says Miss America, and she's talking to some people. And Asia Silva, one of the children who had gone with us, and her mom was there, Asima. Asia tells her mother, Mom, this is Miss America over there. Should I go talk to her? And Asima told her, sure, baby, go and talk with her. So she took some of her material that we had been giving to the Congress offices. She took some of her material and she went to Miss America and she talked with her. This young woman, she listened. She didn't say much. She listened, she took the material and she kept it with her. Her aide came later to Asia and she said, thank you so much, because this was very necessary. That aide happened to be Palestinian. 2 weeks later, Miss America resigned. She gave up her title. And the reason is my values do not align with the values of the organization. Did she say that this happened because of Asima, Justice for All? No, I have no idea whether it did. But maybe it did. We don't know. So whenever you take a little bit of action, you don't know the results. Okay? So again, I'm telling you that please do not underestimate what you can do. And as far as becoming effective, I want you to first and foremost learn articulation techniques. How do you do that? You learn what you're going to speak about. Let's not be driven by emotion. Let's have facts in hand. And you don't have to have statistics, but you have to have basic facts. The other thing is be calm. If you're arguing with somebody, tell me your name, son. Amra and I, we argue all the time, right? And he's crazy. I mean, the guy will almost try to kill you when he starts arguing with you, right? And so the last time, I said, Amra, hang on, Amra, relax. Let's go back. Maybe we should get together for a cup of coffee at some point. And so Amra and I went out to have a cup of coffee. And I told him, Amra, the other day we got a little heated. I'm sorry about that. But you know what? I understand the viewpoint that you were coming from. But I'd like you to understand my viewpoint. At that time, he was more willing to listen. Now, of course, I'm making up the story as I'm going. The point is that when you're arguing with somebody, you can never ever win an argument. So try to change it into a conversation instead. You can win a conversation. How do you do that? That's what we can teach you. Asima Silva, the name that I took, she does classes in this. So here's my challenge to the masjid, that the masjid can host her. It's free, these workshops. And my challenge to you is, if they do host us, then I want you to sit in that class and learn these techniques. Okay. The other thing is writing. An op-ed in your local paper is amazingly powerful. Again, you don't know the little thing that you did. We wrote an op-ed about India at one point. I wrote it, somebody else published it under their name, and it got picked up by many different people, and they started quoting it. So again, you don't know the power of what you write. That's the second thing. How do you write? We can teach you, right? We can have training sessions. I'll have to find somebody. Karishma Manzoor, she had agreed to do that. She writes well, but now she's running for Senate. What do I do about that? I'm sorry. Yeah, he's good at that, ChatGPT. Okay. And of course, support the Media Blitz campaign, please. Like I said, no one else, those evangelical Christians, they are not putting up the money to put up those billboards. They are not paying us to put those LCD trucks around. We've got Muslim Network TV. We regular carry stories on there. We have to support it. Okay. So please support. I'm not here to do fundraising. So I'm not going to go into, who's going to give me 10,000? If you're giving me, I'm fine with it. That's okay. But I'm not going to do that. Okay. That was a subtle way of asking for it. All right, I'm going to stop here. I've got some handouts. Please, Amre, if you can distribute these, this will be good. Yeah, I mean, this is your responsibility, very quick. And then this one is the most important of all because it's got the pledge form in it. Okay, but I'm going to stop here. I really like to to hear your questions. Why? Because if you don't ask me questions, then I know I've not done a good job. So if you want me to think that I've done a good job, ask me a question. But please don't ask me why the sky is blue, because I don't know. Well, because we can go into the scientific explanation of that, but yeah, thank you.
Who has a question here? Anyone has a question? Abu Taha, do you have a question?
I have a question. Really, how would your campaign is effective? I mean, the LCD going in DC and the drivers getting arrested. How effective are you guys there?
Well, I'd say that if he were not being affected, he wouldn't have been arrested, right? Obviously, we ruffled some feathers. So it was going around for a couple of days before the ICE and Capitol Police, mind you. I don't know why Capitol Police. Capitol Police and ICE stopped the truck. ICE takes him into custody. Thankfully he was a white guy, so there wasn't there wasn't much they could do about it. But and that's how they stopped it. It wasn't about actually stopping it, right? It was about trying to send a message to these companies: do not take up their advertising. Alhamdulillah, that company still took it up. That's other questions, please.
Sister side, do you have any question? Sister Abir. Dr.
Yeah.
Khalid.
He's got one, I think, over there.
Oh.
I think the same question as Abu Taha.
Okay.
regarding those, advertisement with the truck, and after that, it's keep going on for.
Yes, at this point, it is back on the roads. Um, yeah, I mean, again, like I said, we don't know. The truck goes around. Obviously, if they didn't care about it, they would have let it
No,
run.
this question,
Right? So
I have a comment, not
Sure.
a question. Because people are afraid of being arrested or losing their job if they speak up at work, because at work you cannot speak about religion or politics.
yeah. So
Especially, I didn't finish.
okay.
Especially, when you have big bosses like all Jewish,
Yeah.
like BLH, it's Bet Israel,
Mhm.
Lehi held. So you cannot talk about it. And the other thing is, it will be better, more effective if the government get involved. I give you an example. Like all the boat when they went to Palestine,
The Samud Platla.
the first one get hit, it cannot get in. But the second one, with the help of their government, all the ship, military ship helping them to get there, is more powerful. That's my comment.
Okay. Okay. So for the first one, yeah, always be careful what you say and how you say it. Okay. I'm not saying just have a confrontation with them. Do not have confrontations. Actually, I said quite the opposite, right? So, but even you'll be surprised as to how many Jewish people do not like what's going on. So just be careful in the way that you say things. You're free to have your opinion, but I understand that there are lots of bosses out there who are Jewish and who are Zionists. Let me actually make that distinction. Mashallah, Jewish people can be amazing partners, and Zionists are of two kinds. Zionists are the ultra Zionists who you can keep saying anything to, and they're not going to listen, right? And then there is something called the progressive Zionists, which is a very strange breed. I actually believe that progressive Zionists do exist, and they do have some good in them. Okay. Some people say, well, if he says Zionist, he is a Zionist. No, I actually believe that these progressive Zionists, they do want to have a homeland for the Jews, but not at the expense of at the state of what's happening in Palestine. So let's give them that little benefit of doubt. Um, so you'll have to judge as to which person that you're talking with, and you'll have to adjust your what you're saying accordingly. Okay. So, but I completely understand what you're saying. Yep. Sure.
Just want to. This is great. I think
One second,
just
one
all into great job.
Barakallah.
I want first to congratulate you guys for this work. Now, my first question is there a vision beyond just mobilizations, right? Because yes, it's great to get the foot in,
Mhm.
right? But is there? We hear a lot, for instance, about lobbying,
Mhm.
from different organizations that you cited from other groups. Is Justice for All planning or has a vision or working with groups that will try to really change that side of the work?
Oh, of course, yes. So at the end of the day, Justice for All does not make decisions which are contrary to what the affected, what we call the impacted people want. Okay, so whether it was the Rohingya, and by the way, we don't not only speak for the Rohingya. What happened is when we were speaking for the Rohingya, we found out that the Kachin, the Karen, and the Shan communities in Burma, who are Christian, they had an even lesser voice than the Rohingya did. So we said, why don't you come along with us so that we collectively get stronger? So at that time, we loaned them our strength because they were so small. In this case, we are borrowing the strength of the evangelicals. So uh, you have to kind of meander through things as it goes. But at the end of the day, the what the Palestinians want would be what we would say. We will not say, well, the Palestinians want this, but we are going to say you have to have this. No, we cannot do that.
So how are you guys, if
Yeah.
out of curiosity, how are you evaluating this? How can you know? No, it's hard even to discuss with the
Yeah.
Palestinian today. I'm not speaking about my brothers here in the US, but
Sure.
in Gaza or in
Yeah.
so
Yeah, that's actually a way, unfortunately, within Palestinians, there are lots. Sorry, I know that he's Palestinian. There are a lot of different groups with their own different ideas, right? You have to kind of understand. And this is not from an organization. This is my personal viewpoint that I'm saying that for me, you have to kind of figure out what is achievable. Okay, from an organizational viewpoint, we will stay out of it because we don't want to go against one group as opposed to another group. In the case of the Uyghur or of Indian Muslims, it's a little simpler because Indian Muslims are facing an impending genocide and everybody is concerned about that. So you know that that is the one goal that you have. In the case of the Rohingya, they need to get their citizenship back. That is the one singular goal that they have and that we will help them. In the Palestinians case, it's a little bit different. Let me also, why don't you finish your second question, then I'll say something about that.
My second question was about the alliance. Through this very complex last 2 years,
Yeah.
we saw shifts. We saw people that were supporting, that went the other side, the people that were against, that were the other side, that went, and it's make it very complicated to read the room sometimes, right? And we see the same thing from the presidency. We see the same thing, today we're going to sign something, tomorrow it's something else that will happen. Uh, so how do Justice for All now fit in all this as they're working with those different groups that now have different views, and sometimes they say what I'm not,
No, actually, this is an excellent question because when I said I'll say something about Palestine, this is exactly what I was going to say. So if you look at our Palestine work, right, everybody agrees that starvation is bad. So why did we take up this thing? Because everybody agrees about it, right? Everybody agrees that the media is the problem. You ask one Palestinian group, another Palestinian, everybody will agree that the media is a problem, right? And so what do we do? Through our sister organization, Muslim Network TV, we run stories which are not biased. That's one. The other thing is we started what's called the Palestine Media Watch. Every single one of you can do this, by the way. It takes less than a minute. So anytime there is a good story, it helps to tell the reporter, thank you. Every time there's a bad story, you tell the reporter, you got this wrong, you got this wrong, this is the way that it was supposed to be. That is what the Palestine Media Watch does. Okay? So again, like I said, all Palestinian groups will agree that the media has a problem, has a bias, and so that's where we went. The third thing that we did is we filed about 53 cases at the International Criminal Court. Okay? So there was Hind Rajab's case, there was the Greek church that was bombed. So we kind of put it into the context of international law, and we started filing cases at the International Criminal Court. So in all of these three, we didn't talk about single state, we didn't talk about a double state, we didn't talk about that because there are people who say we can live with a two-state solution. We don't want a two-state solution, we just want one state. We want all the Israelis out. Some others will say we can live with them. But in those three things that we did, we stayed away from that. Okay. So will it please every Palestinian out there? No. Right? Because obviously they'll say, you're not saying this. You have to say things like this. But we are trying to be careful and at least do what most people will agree. So this answer may be liked by some and not liked by others, but that's what it is. Yeah. I mean, look, we have mashallah, we have a very good access to the State Department with the NSA at the White House, right? And in Trump's time, it's not been that good, but throughout history, first Trump's term was excellent. Other groups did not have as good an access as we did. And the reason that we have that good access is because they do not see us as being biased. They don't mind us having our opinion, right? But they cannot point a pin at us and say that you're biased. You're only looking at one point. So you have to, this allows you access to these agencies, for whatever it's worth. But yeah, yeah.
It will open
Yeah.
doors to speak about it.
Exactly.
And I think
Exactly.
sometimes more important.
One of the other things that we do not speak as Palestinians, we do not speak as Indians, we do not speak as Rohingya, we don't speak as Uyghur, we speak as Muslim Americans for the cause. Okay, so our identity is Muslim American. Even if I'm leading the Save India from Fascism campaign and I volunteer with the Indian American Muslim Council, with the identity over there is they're Indian Muslim Americans speaking for India, right? And we'll work together, but they know very well that our identity is Muslim Americans speaking against what's happening. So again, the identity matters. There are differences are there. That should never become a reason for us to work against an organization. See, a lot of people, the last time I was speaking here about a year ago, somebody said that there are so many organizations, we are always fighting with each other, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, that's actually a misunderstanding. The more organizations we have, it's good. Because if I get shut down, you can take over. If you get shut down, he can take over, right? So many organizations are a good thing. The only thing that we should not do, and I think Muslim organizations typically don't do that, is we do not work against the other. And that is a good thing.
Yeah, first, Barakallah Fika
Alaikum.
for all the work that you and your organization have done. My question is around um, changing a politician's stance on a certain policy subject.
Sure.
And you've worked across many different ones, but I think the Palestine question is a very unique one because there's a lot of money on one end, and from my experience, a lot of these politicians aren't necessarily ideologically inclined one way or another in the Palestine question. And a lot of them go into office with sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, but once AIPAC gets a hold of them, that it's hard to change course. So what have you seen as effective ways to have politicians come to the right side of history?
So, of course, the most difficult thing that we'd have to cross is what you exactly said, once AIPAC gets hold of them, right? AIPAC does one thing very well, and that is if a politician is turning pro-Israel, they will run a primary against that person. Cori Bush, we saw that. We saw that against Jamal Bowman, right? Unfortunately, Cori Bush was excellent at this, but she's gone. So how do we defeat that? We'll have to build our own packs. Okay. There's one thing that I tell everyone that whenever I speak is call your congressperson, right? So when you call your congressperson, it always helps to say the city that you're from and that you're a constituent, right? Now, if you say that I am a voter, it goes up a little more. Now, if you say I am a donor to your campaign, it goes up a little more. How can you be a donor to someone's campaign? You give them $1. They're not going to check how much you gave. Give them $1, but it gives you the ability of saying that I supported you when you were running for election. Right? But of course, obviously, we don't have the $21 million that AIPAC spent against Cori Bush, or I think about 17 million against Jamal Bowman. We'll have to get there at some point. The other way, of course, is, like I said, Abu Taha running, Karishma Manzoor running, that lady from Illinois, the young girl, and that is going to fill that gap. So if you guys are not, and I'm bad at this myself, but if you are so inclined to be on, say, your local councils, on your school committees, do it. Because that's where you will get the platform of going to a higher office. Karishma, mashallah, she's trying to run for Senate from New Hampshire, but this is her first jump. She herself has told me that she was never interested in anything other than Gaza. When I spoke in the Nashwa Masjid, I gave her the platform to speak along with me so that she can get to know people, right? You don't want to be there. You want to kind of do the ladder because that is more successful usually. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's it's really helpful. I think one point you mentioned earlier about Muslim Americans having the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily their case. There are a lot of Muslims around the world and Muslim Americans that aren't necessarily willing to put in the work or willing to put the money where
That's
it's worth.
unfortunately true. So one of the things that happen is that we have been programmed, okay, and I will actually blame some of our shuyukh about it. Okay, we are programmed. Can you remember that one person who was actually right here in this masjid, he is a foreigner and he was against this Punish Biden campaign. Okay, then there were the people in Michigan, Punish Biden, or actually they were pro-Trump directly, or some of the big shuyukh from the southern states. They were Punish Biden. We have to get him out. Who did we get? We got the person who was always saying that he's going to give Israel a free hand. Right? If something looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, what do you think it is, Amr? It's a duck. Okay. And so, unfortunately, we got conned. And we allowed them to con us. In fact, unfortunately, we still support the very same people who did that and allowed them to come into our institutions. That's one. The other thing that we are programmed is that we have to relief, and I'm not saying don't give to relief organization. Please don't get me wrong. But understand that there are different ways of getting to something. Let me ask you a question. Of all how much money do you, after 2017, after that Rohingya exodus happened, right? Well, it wasn't an exodus, it was an expulsion. After that happened, how much money do you think all of the Muslim relief organizations combined might have been able to send to the Rohingya? Can somebody guess? I would say maybe about 100 million, between 30 to 100 million. Now, we didn't take one single cent from you ever for relief. Justice for All did not do that. We always said that we are an advocacy organization, we are a human rights organization. How much money do you think we were able to supply to the Rohingya? $2.3 billion. Where did that come from? From the US government and from the Canadian government. It's your tax money. Okay. When Biden was in office, we were running a campaign telling him that you supplied $22 billion, I think, at that time to Israel. Allocate $4 billion for Gaza. Okay. Unfortunately, this is what happens. We don't catch on. You cannot ask Biden for that. He's giving. No. This is what this is the low-hanging fruit. Get that low-hanging fruit. After that, go for the higher-hanging fruit. So these are things that we have to learn. And actually, I'm not the best at it. If you look at Imam Mujahid, who's the chief strategist, or Imam Safat, he's going to be here at the ISBCC on November 23rd, inshallah, 22nd. Or Hena Zubairi, mashallah, they're excellent at this because they know this, how to build a strategy, right? We are also accredited at the United Nations, so that allows us to go talk to the Security Council. It allows us to go talk to country representatives. And you have to build that up. So we have one status, we don't have ECOSOC status, we are trying to get ECOSOC, but that happens as step by step. So.
Any other questions, or should we stop here?
I'm okay. If there are questions, fine. If there are none, that's
Any
fine.
other questions?
The last word that tomorrow there is a chance to start doing this volunteer with the Abu Talha.
Yeah, absolutely.
At 11.
At 11, inshallah. 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 Location? What is the location?
Lincoln Park.
Lincoln Park.
Lincoln Park.
Lincoln Park. Okay. Jazakallah khair, Brother Zahir Adil, for the talk. and inshallah we will implement that in our life, inshallah.
Inshallah.
We'll
And-
try our best,
Yeah.
inshallah.
And if you want to get the public speaking or
Yeah.
writing workshops, and let me know.
Yeah, I'll talk to Brother
I'll
Bilal.
drag Asima from Worcester, and she can do the. We'll feed her something. That's fine.
Inshallah.
Something vegetarian because she doesn't eat non-veg, unfortunately.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Zahir.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Tell me your name. Maybe. Yeah, I'll give you my card. Inshallah, keep in touch.